welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am here today with the author Miranda Smith, who wrote a book called Smile for the Cameras. And this is like this genre and this subgenre is like one of my bread and butter genres. I am a horror fan. I am a child of the 90s. Scream, which was like a big touchstone in sort of bringing back this genre that your main character, Ella, is in, was big when I was a teenager. And it's just, I like meta fiction about film. So really, like, this was trifecta for me.
Good.
Once again, welcome Miranda Smith. Let's talk about Smile for the Cameras.
All
Would you like,
right.
yeah, tell me a little bit about this book and sort of where the idea came from for you.
Well, really, everything you just said kind of applies to me too. So I grew up in the 90s. I love that 90s, early 2000s nostalgia, all those great slasher films that came out around that time. So that was a big inspiration for the book. And I really like to write books that I like to read. So I wanted to just kind of put something out there that incorporated all the different tropes and genre fiction that I like, and it all came together in Small for the Cameras.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good things in here and a lot of subversions of those tropes. Um, it's like what was interesting about it is it's the main character is Ella, and she was sort of a reluctant scream queen, I suppose. She ended up on this film, Grad Night.
Grad
Grad
night.
Night. And like she's at her age, you're going to take what you get. And most
Right.
people don't know when a movie is going to become a cultural touchstone. And I don't think that Ella specifically expected Grad Night to gain as much of a fandom as it did. Um, so she was on this movie. It's your typical 90s, 80s slasher film. Teenagers go to drink and have a good time and have sex, and then somebody comes along with a knife and starts killing them.
Yes, bad things happen.
Bad things happen. Bad things happen. And the movie just blew up in a way that Ella and the others, her castmates, did not expect. But there was a trauma that happened within the filming of it. And for that reason, she just wants to let go of it, but it's not letting go of her because it's what people think of her from. So, yeah. So if you wanted to chat just a little bit about that, because there is just this long-standing thing about how movies that people don't expect to get big, and then it affects actors for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of known for that particular role or that particular franchise. And I feel like sometimes actors really lean into that, and they'll go to the different conferences and they love being associated with Scream or whatever movie it might be. And then in the case of Ella, like you mentioned, she's had this traumatic experience shooting the film. And so, it's what launched her career and made her who she is in many ways, and yet she can't escape it. Um, there's a dual timeline in the book. So I thought that was really interesting too, to go back and forth and kind of see what Ella and the other actors are experiencing while they're filming this. They, like you said, kind of think, this could be nothing. And then we also get the forward timeline 20 years later where we see how it's made them all famous and kind of put them on the map in different ways. So I like that back and forth.
Yeah, and it also just touches upon, something the relationship between cast and crew, and also a child actor and their stage parent, which is something else that is sort of it's prevalent when you come to fame at a young age. But what I really liked about it was that dual timeline and was sort of the mystery of what happened then, what ha is happening now. And because I don't think I mentioned this part. Yes, so this movie was really big, much bigger than Ella or even her co-stars really expected, but now they want to have a reunion. So she's back with them, and it's kind of presented to her by her publicity that, like, listen, you want to stay in the public eye, you need to embrace the fact that grad night is your launching point, because otherwise your career
Right.
is going to flounder. So she reluctantly does this. And with this, that requires not only going back to somebody who she ended up sort of having feelings for on the set, and somebody who has gone on to become an influencer and use her fame in a different way. By the way, Aries is such a good name for a female character. Like,
Thank you.
I was like, oh my goodness, I've never really thought, because I read a lot of books and you hear a lot of names, and I'm like, that is actually quite provocative to have a female character named Aries for so many reasons, and it fit her. But you have like the heartthrob and the one, it's not just them kind of coming back together and then kind of, looking at her like that girls in, with the red cups staring at someone like, where have you been meme? But it's also about them returning to a place where, as I'd mentioned, not only was something filmed that became much bigger than them, but something happened that connected them in the way that makes Ella not want to be involved with them. So there's just so much going on there, but I mean that in the best way. So really what I wanted to ask was the threads of the story and the characters as they came in. Um, who came first? Was Ella the first point, and was the movie the set piece before she came in?
Um, I really leaned into a lot of those character archetypes from those films. So, like you mentioned, we have the heartthrob, we have the rich kind of party guy, the final girl main character, but who's a little bit shy, a little more reserved, and then her kind of boisterous sidekick in Aries. So I was really trying to create a character that would lean into each of those. Ella was the first one, but as you mentioned, Aries, I feel like is the first character that really leapt off the page and like brought. She just came to life in my mind. Like I could just envision her, I could hear her, and so she was a very fun character to create. But yeah, just leaning into those different tropes. You can think of any movie, Scream. I know what you did last summer, and you can almost envision either that actor or that character. And so I wanted to have something very memorable for readers as they're reading the script within the book. That's something else that's kind of unique about this book is in addition to the dual timeline, you get the past, you get the present, but you're also getting the screenplay of the actual movie in the book. So I wanted readers to be able to really envision these characters as they're reading the screenplay, and then kind of see the real life person who's playing that character off screen.
And what I thought was interesting is you also kind of get people's perception of the movies, like fans, like why they feel so strongly about grad night. Um, and why it's so important to them. And, some people are saying, like, it was because they had the actors use their own names in the movie, which was very different. Yeah, and like actually that's kind of one thing I wanted to sort of circle into was typically in those movies you have characters with very gender neutral names. And you have Sydney, you have Lori, I believe a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was it Stretch? I'm trying to remember. It was a very like, it wasn't a very feminine nickname,
Hmm.
but here, Ella is inherently feminine. And it really sort of frames things as a little different. And I did love that aspect of being able to read the script and kind of like not only see what the movie was supposed to be, but get those flashes of what the production was like.
Yeah, the main reason, just from a writing perspective, that I kept the characters' names the same in the movie was just to make life a little bit easier on the reader. I didn't want to overcomplicate things with Ella's playing this character and Riley's playing that character, and so I felt that that made it a little easier for the readers to connect with the characters in the book and the characters in the movie from page one. Um, but yeah, I think each of the names, that was one thing, sometimes you'll write these manuscripts and then you'll go back in with your editing team and, you'll have to change a name, like if it sounds too familiar to another name. And I was really happy we were able to keep each of the names for the characters because I thought that it just fit them so well.
It really did. And I also just loved the look the look behind the camera as well, because this is kind of been billed on many of the reviews as a locked room almost.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're filming something, it's not just a locked room of actors. It's also the locked room of you're very close quarters with a subsection, like a petri dish of people. But a lot of those people are the people who are the production part of it and the people you don't necessarily think of, but they see a little bit of everything that's going
Right.
on behind the scenes.
Yeah, so definitely with the screenplay, I mean, it is so locked room in the fact that there's really just these four main characters, and then of course, a psycho killer out there watching them from afar. But in the flashback chapters, you get to see all the people. The cast really expands in that you get to see the director and the people that work on the set, and all you get to really see how their relationships with the actors develop over the course of filming, and also how they're impacted 20 years later when they're all brought back together again.
Did you have all of the plot points and twists thought out before you started writing this, or did some of them kind of come up as the characters grew?
I try to approach every book as a plotter and I try to plot everything out, but usually about, I would say, 60% in, that pantser side of me rises up. So this was one where I kind of had certain characters locked in and certain plot points locked in, but then as I was writing, they did change. And I always feel like those are the best moments of writing because that's when the story's really taking on a life of its own and the changes that come about are just so organic. So there were a couple that surprised me as I was writing.
I mean, I feel like I know the answer to this one too, but were there any characters that just kind of walked away with the page and you had to reel them back in?
Yeah, definitely. I can say Aries is one of them. She's just um, um, such a fiery character, and she's a foil for Ella in so many ways. Where Ella is very reserved and she's very um, insecure, and she doesn't want to confront the past. Aries is just like, here I am, you know, and which I think is a good thing. Uh, especially in a dynamic like this, where in a world where everyone is, you know, kind of very aware of their celebrity and they're very media savvy and they're very much thinking about like how things might be portrayed. Having those authentic characters who are just themselves, I think, is really important.
I just love this book. I mean, again, like the more I talk about it, the more I'm kind of running into spoiler territory, which I
Right.
don't want to do. But I do think, one of the things that I really like about when I talk to people about their writing process is that I do think like people are talking a little bit more about, there's the term pantser. I like to say either discovery writer or MacGyver writer, where like you
Okay.
know that there's bombs somewhere and you have like, I don't know, a rubber band and a toothpick, and you have to figure out how your character is going to defuse them.
Right.
But it is fun to listen to the process because, to write a book, especially one that has so many twists and turns and different characters, it is like a breathing entity. And
Mhm.
it's I could tell that you had a lot of fun writing this one.
Thank you. I really did. Again, when I sat down to write it, I wanted to write something that would kind of incorporate all those movies and nostalgic elements that I loved growing up. Um, you know, I'm also I've written several books before this one, and they're all mainly domestic suspense. So a lot of, housewives turning into amateur sleuths. And I love that genre too. I'm a big Desperate Housewives fan. I love that, kind of suburban drama as well. But to kind of go in the totally opposite direction of that and to totally lean into the horror element, the glitz and glam of the celebrity world, it was just a lot of fun to write.
I also like that there was, and I touched about this on this a little bit earlier, there was also that aspect of grief and forgiveness of family in this, because as we find out that Ella did have kind of, this, she rose to fame and she had, a parent behind it, like they had a very close relationship and she lost her. So she's grieving while she's kind of made to go back to this world that she experienced a trauma in that she doesn't want to confront. So I mean it's about grief a little bit, both grief of a parent, but also the grief of confronting something that was not pleasant.
Yeah, I think Ella's main struggle is, she's searching for her own identity. Even in the present timeline, 20 years later, she still doesn't really know who she is because, like you said, she had that relationship with her parent that was kind of a stage parent relationship. There's one line in the book where she says, she doesn't know if um, her dream started or her mother's dream ended. And even though they had a good relationship, there definitely wasn't a lot of bad blood there. I think now that her mother has passed away, she doesn't have her career anymore. She's really floundering and does not know who she is. So she's going back to this world of acting, hoping to find herself, but of course having to confront a lot of things that she doesn't want to confront in the process.
It was great. A lot of fun, a really good read. What's next for you? Are you going to do something different? Are you going to return to your roots, sort of?
I'm working on another book right now. Don't have just a ton of details to share other than it is definitely leaning into um, my love of film once again. So uh, another kind of locked room isolation thriller that'll lean into a lot of the tropes that you find in different types of movies. So yeah, having a lot of fun with this one too, and just hope that readers can enjoy it as well.
Absolutely. As a former film theory person, that is again something I will be reading.
That's great. Yeah, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but from childhood on, what really like started my love of movies is my parents owned a video rental store growing up. So that was you know, my whole childhood, especially in the summers, my sisters and I, we would get early access to new releases, and then we would go back and we would pick a franchise like Halloween or Friday the 13th and just kind of go through the whole catalog of that franchise. And so, yeah, I mean, my love for movies, particularly horror movies, started at a really young age and definitely influenced this book and the next one.
Yeah, it was so apparent. And I think like it was this grad night was spoken about as, you know, like one of those classic sleepover movies that, right? Like this is what you would watch when you're at a sleepover and then nobody would sleep afterwards.
Right. I just think that brings back a lot of memories for readers. I mean, we can all think of those classic movies. I know for me, it was I Know What You Did Last Summer. I mean, we would want to watch it, we get excited to watch it, and then, like you said, we wouldn't be able to sleep, and parents would kind of make fun of us for being so afraid. But yeah, you know, you watch these movies, and 10 years, 20 years later, you can still kind of remember the feelings you felt at the time.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you captured that perfectly.
Thank you.
Okay, so this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was Miranda Smith. Check out Smile for the Cameras. This is a early summer release, and perfect timing, just around grad week.
Yeah.
Right?
24th. Yes,
Yes.
I think it's a perfect summer read.
Absolutely. I think it's funny. Different people have their ideas of what a summer read is. Some people are like, no, nice on the beach, girlfriends getting together. And I'm like, nope, 100% murder.
I'm the same way. I'm all about the dark side.
All right. We are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.